In the post-election analysis, we see that Hillary Clinton beats Christie by 10 percentage points in some polls for an election that's going to happen 3 years from now. Isn't it a little early to be talking about what Democrats and Republicans can yield from a potential possible matchup? Let's talk about that next on Get Right with Lenny McAllister, starting right
now. Get Right with Lenny McAllister.
I've had it up to here with the likes of you people!
The way we help bring back America and we build the bridges and bring people together is by making sure we hold everybody accountable in a 360 fashion. So let me close with this. Yes, there is a change that we can believe in, but it will never come from a politician or a government program.
We cannot find physical sanity here in the land of Lincoln, from Carbondale to Elgin, that we can collectively continue to tolerate the insanity found on the streets of South Chicago and East Texas.
We got to move away from the American Idol soundbite nature of politics and back to the American statesman of humble servant leadership that we used to see in politics. It is time to roll out the era of the new, educated, engaged, and energized American citizens. I go do the jail ministry. I speak to the kids in the streets. So I'm never going to lay down being conservative just as much as I'll never lay down being a proud African American.
I feel like a black republic. Money I got coming in. Can't turn my back on the hood. I got love for them. Can't clean my act if you could.
Hello to another wonderful, fantastic edition of Get Right with Lenny McAllister. It's you and me rocking it once again. You know the drill. It's me, Lenny McAllister. It's you and me vibing back and forth, talking on Twitter. If you want to correspond, you know where to go. Twitter.com. Just simply hit me up. LennyMcAllister. Of course, if you want to put your comments on Facebook, very simple to put it on social media there as well. Very simply, you go to tinyurl.com/Lenny Page or tinyurl.com/LennyPA for the native Pennsylvanian in me, GE. And, you know, I caution people from wanting to talk about the 2016 elections now for a lot of reasons. And I'm going to talk about it not so much in the premise or under the confines, if you will, of Hillary Clinton versus Christie, which you've already seen the poll numbers. Because of Christie's huge win in New Jersey, automatically people are going to this. Well, in a head-to-head matchup, Hillary Clinton would beat Christie 44-34, according to the latest polls. And again, number one, it's 2013. He just won a second term as governor of the state of New Jersey. Second of all, Hillary Clinton, we don't even know if she's going to run. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. She hasn't announced yet. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge some more. So before we even go down this path, can somebody at least announce that they're actually going to really run for the presidency in 2016? I mean, that's first and foremost. And that's really just preliminarily out there. But there's more to it. And here's the caution that I'm putting out there in several different ways. And again, I want your feedback on Facebook or on Twitter as we go through this analysis, if you will. Number one, I understand that Christie only outpolls Mrs. Clinton, the former Secretary of State, the former Senator from New York, the former First Lady. I understand that he only outpolls her in the same demographics that Mitt Romney did well in 2012. White, upper middle class, and male. I get that. And before anybody takes that and says, see, the Republican brand is just so bad that even Christie can't get through that. Don't do that. Number one, it is 3 years away. Number two, presidential elections are very, very different. People get attached to people when it comes to running for the presidency in a way that does not happen when you run for Congress, in a way that does not happen. I'm talking about one political party versus another, Republican versus Democrat. They don't get attached in quite the same way, by and large. You don't see it at the senatorial level. You don't see it at the congressional level. At the presidential level, people get very, very emotionally attached and involved with the candidate, which is why the turnout every 4 years at the presidential level, at that year, that every 4-year mark, that's when you see the spike in the American electorate coming out to vote. You don't see, midterms every 2 years is Congress, and it's a third of the Senate. It matters just as much. In fact, a lot of states are electing their governors at the point in time as well. They're all electing their general assemblies for the most part at that point in time, except for the odd number ones, your Jerseys and your Virginias. You would think that the numbers would be very similar. The reason why they're not is because every 4 years on that cycle, you see people getting emotionally invested in who their president is going to be. And that's a personal choice. That is a choice that drives people to the polls in a way that it doesn't drive people to the polls for other elections. So with that said, 3 years out, and you see similar results polling Christie versus Romney when applying that to a potential Clinton run, if she chooses to run, because she may not run for the presidency after all, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, chuckle, snort. You have to understand that he has not had the opportunity to run for president yet. Hillary Clinton has already had the opportunity for people to embrace her, squeeze her, hug her, love her, not just as Secretary of State, the third out of four, three out of the last four were women, by the way. For people that are looking for this huge glass ceiling to shatter, there are more people coming up into the electorate that don't see it as being a big deal having a woman president. Not in the sense that, we don't need to have one. I'm not saying that. And I'm not trying to cast aside the historical significance of it. What I am saying is there are more people coming into their electorate that do not think that this is such a huge deal. Like it's, unfathomable that you would have a woman that would be president. Generation X, my generation, we've had women do everything. It's almost like, why haven't we had a female president? We've had female governors and senators and congressmen and teachers and bankers and lawyers and surgeons, and you go on and on. You name an occupation, there's been a lady in that occupation, and we shrug our shoulders and say, and so that might have been my classmate. Might have played with her on the playground in third grade, and now she's running XYZ, and we don't think twice about it. You come into the boardroom, you're wearing a skirt, you're wearing pants, you're wearing, pantsuit, you're wearing bow tie because you're a dude, or we don't care. So, with that said, and she had a lot to do with that, obviously. So, it's not the same type of, and I would dare say this, it's not the same type of gravitas having her be the first female president as I think it was to have the first African American president, because although obviously women hit a lot of glass ceilings in America, I think if you asked the average American in 2006, will we have a female president first or a black president? People could conceptualize in 2006 that Hillary Clinton was going to be the nominee, that Hillary Clinton probably was polling ahead of any Republican at that point in time. And at that point in time, it probably was Rudy Giuliani. And that you could see a female president within the next 2 years in 2006. That's not the same type of deal 10 years later as we ended up going through 2 years later past that 2006. So getting to 2016, you're not going to have the same type of shock, I don't think, that people had when a guy with a funny Muslim name won Iowa. Again, think about that. You have a former first lady in 2016 after already running for the presidency versus a guy with a funny Muslim-sounding name winning Iowa. So, one, she's going to come into 2016, and the newness isn't going to be there. And right now that benefits her in the polls. I mean, she has had 20 years for the American society to love her, embrace her, know her on a very intimate level. She's been a senator. She's been a Secretary of State. She's already run for the presidency. She's already won multitudes of states. She's already done a lot of these things already that Chris Christie just hasn't done. She was living in the White House for 8 years. She just wasn't called Madam President, even though some people actually did call her Madam President. And you know why. I mean, one, she's smart. Two, they were seen as being a team for a little while. A dual presidency. And with her running, we'll see why. But that was 8 years, them being a senator, then running for the presidency, them being Secretary of State. There's 20 years of being on an international stage that Chris Christie has not had yet. So if you look at the poll numbers, and I'm going all around Jack's barn, as my mom used to say, to get to this point. If you look at the poll numbers that we are hearing about today, November 2013, and say, see what I mean? Even if Christie runs against Clinton, he's too moderate, he's too squishy, and he's supposed to be the most likable Republican. We need to go more conservative. Ted Cruz 2016, Rand Paul 2016. Or if you say, well, maybe it's Christie, but he needs to toughen up and be more of a conservative. Don't say any of those things in 2013. Nobody has had the opportunity on the national level, on an ongoing basis, to embrace Chris Christie the way Hillary Clinton has been embraced for 20 plus years. And that matters in a poll 3 years before a potential, and I say potential matchup, because if you go to 2008, it was Giuliani versus Clinton. That's what the ticket was supposed to look like. McCain, I remember in 2007 in North Carolina meeting Senator McCain in a small private setting. And the rumors were already out there that he was running out of money and he was looking to re-spark his campaign because he was about to drop out in 2007. Now, as we well know, that was, that was before you had a Huckabee surge, a little bit of a Romney surge, and you ended up having Giuliani flame out, and here came McCain from the middle of the pack to end up being the nominee and outlast everybody. So I say to you, when you do these polls and you take things that are very clearly uneven, international exposure for 20 plus years, just won his second election to be governor of the state of New Jersey, has already run for the presidency and got very, very close to winning it. And I don't care what anybody says. If Hillary Clinton would have won the Democratic nomination in 2008, she might have had a bigger margin over John McCain than Barack Obama did, who is now the 44th president of the United States. Because Hillary came in being seen as being experienced, being more moderate as a Democrat, and generally speaking, more respected, and even given the de facto status of, well, she's going to be president. She's going to be the nominee. Things would have been seen as being on schedule, if you will, quote unquote, if she wins the nomination and she's speaking in Denver and not Mr. Obama. When you take all that into consideration and you look at these polls, if you're a Republican, you can't overreact, number one. If you're a Tea Party conservative, you can't beat up Christie immediately. You just cannot do that. You have to go to that Reagan 11th commandment. You shall not attack, because it really is talking and attacking at the same time. They should make it a verb. You shall not attack your fellow Republican. And there's a reason why that is the case. You're 3 years out. No one's officially declared, and they're already painting him to be the underdog. And I don't know if it's fair to do this when it comes to presidential elections. When you're doing it this far out, and you're doing polling this far out, and the Q rating is not even the same, even though obviously Chris Christie has some Q rating. But it's still not the same. It's still not the same for people in Montana. Excuse me. Still not the same with people in Utah. It's still not the same in certain areas of the United States, key areas, where you're going to have to go in there and you're going to have to poll and you're going to have to introduce people to Chris Christie and talk about how this Republican won 2 straight terms as governor of New Jersey. Yes, that New Jersey, super blue New Jersey, which is smacked up against super blue Philadelphia and Pennsylvania and super blue New York State. You're going to have to put that groundwork in. And by the way, New York State, you mean where former Senator Clinton was the senior U.S. senator? I mean, these are things that when you look at these polls, you can't get discouraged if you're a Republican. It's 3 years away. It does not mean that somebody with Chris Christie's ilk is not going to be effective going down the path of garnering both A, the Republican nomination for the presidency, and B, if he is the nominee, doing a mighty fine showing in the general election, making Pennsylvania doable, making Ohio doable again, doing something possibly with Virginia, pleasing people in Northern Virginia enough so that he can continue to hold the conservatives in the southern part of that state and win Virginia, make that a red state again. Same with Florida. Do something with North Carolina. I mean, these are things that have transpired over the last several elections. 12, 10, 8. That had not been the case for 40-something odd years. You have to at least give him an opportunity to get on equal footing with the former senator from New York before you start saying this is going to work, this is not going to work. Now, I know that the Tea Party conservative already does not like Chris Christie in many, many regards, I think. I think that they think he's a loudmouth, and he bullies them around just as much as he bullies around the liberals. Again, it was really cool when he was doing it in 2009, 2010 and talking down the teachers unions and trying to get some order in regards to the spending in New Jersey. It's a different story when you go to the Tea Party element and you tell them, hey, listen, you're going too far as well. It's a different story when after Superstorm Sandy, he's acting like a governor and he's not acting like a politician. So I understand the angst that some hardcore conservatives are going to have about Christie, but if you're going to be fair, and that's a caveat, most of you are, some of you are not. But if you're going to be fair about this, you cannot look at these polls and automatically say, see, this is what happens when we're not conservative enough. Same as Romney, same as McCain. It's not the same game. Romney was going up against an incumbent. And by the way, Romney, in addition to having his own interesting record up in Massachusetts, had to run with Todd Aiken wrapped around his neck as an albatross, Richard Murdoch wrapped around his neck as an albatross, Christine O'Donnell wrapped around his neck as an albatross from 2010, Sharon Angle wrapped around his neck as an albatross from 2010. The failures of the Tea Party caucus in 2011 with the debt ceiling negotiations. I mean, these are things that Mitt Romney had to run against. He was running with a bad brand and a one-term gubernatorial tenure in Massachusetts versus an incumbent president that did break a glass ceiling that, was able to look at the Republicans and say, I haven't done that well, but do you want that instead? And there were enough examples for people to be scared off. Then you had other controversial things that came up in 2012. The Trayvon Martin case, I'm sorry, it ginned up racial tension. So a lot of times you had conservatives on one side of the issue, you had African Americans on another side of the issue, and that was enough to get people engaged in civics. You have voter ID laws that did the same exact thing, including in the swing state here of Pennsylvania. So you had these things that worked against Mitt Romney. John McCain had the lead coming out of the Republican convention, and the Republican convention was second. He did not relinquish that lead permanently until about the end of September when the first debate came up. He wasn't going to show up, and then at the last minute he decides, yeah, I better show up. You can't say you're not going to show up because you're going to work on the crisis because you're a leader that's going to take hold and then change your mind, because it makes it seem as though you are flip-flopping and that you're following, not leading. And once you have that image in a race to see basically who's the leader, and you show that, no, I'm not leading, I'm following, it's over. So, I mean, let's not do revisionist history and say, well, they're too moderate, and here's Christie in polls that are 3 years premature, and Christie's just too moderate as well. That is very, very, it's not fair, it's not right, it's bad. So let's take a step back. Let's not let traditional media, and I'm not going to say this is a fault of traditional media, and I'm not going to say that this is traditional media trying to swing the election 3 years, ahead of time, because that's wrong too. Again, you can give me your opinion on Twitter or Facebook if you think that's the case. I don't. I'm not going to give them that much credit, nor do I think that they're that malicious. I think some people in the media are malicious. I don't think they're all malicious. I just got to put that out there. But when you look at the poll numbers and you're a conservative even if you're just an American, let me take a step back from conservative. If you're an American and you're looking at the poll numbers and you really, really, really think that Hillary Clinton has 10 points to play with in regards to if it's Christie and then more if it's anybody else, if you really, really think that, you are begging for Hillary Clinton to make the same mistake she made in 2007. You are begging for her to make the same exact mistake she made in 2007, because that is what she did with the former state senator from Illinois, who had only been a U.S. senator for about 2 years before he announced that he was running for the presidency. It's the same exact mistake. I have this big lead. He doesn't have a Q rating. I have all this experience on the national and international stages. There's no way that they're going to be able to overtake me and basically coronate me now. That is what happened in 2008. And she came in third place in Iowa and never recovered. So, I say this as I leave. Please don't buy into these polls. It's way too early. There's too many things for us to work through. People actually have to get a chance to really touch and feel and embrace Chris Christie before they realize whether they really like him or not. People have to run an actual presidential campaign. Hillary Clinton already has. She already has a template out there. We don't know if she's going to up her game. We know what she did. We know that she did many things well. We know that there were some tragic flaws from a political standpoint that she did also, one of which was underestimating Obama. None of those things have happened with Christie yet. Speaking at a convention is not running for the presidency, despite what some Republicans think about his convention speech last year. What do you think? I'm throwing it out there. I'm telling you to avoid buying too much into these poll numbers because I don't think they matter quite yet. What's your opinion on this? You know where to find me on Twitter. LENNY_MCALLISTER. On Facebook, you know where to go. tinyurl.com/LENNY. PA for the PA native, GE. Want to hear your feedback? Looking forward to catching up to you soon. Real quick before I go, if you're in the Pittsburgh metropolitan tri-state area, I will be on PCNC tomorrow, 10 a.m. on Pittsburgh Now with Chris Moore. I will be the Republican commentator for the first time appearing on local-based television. To be a pretty big thrill for a native Pittsburgher like me. So catch me there. In the meanwhile, catch me on Global Grind as well. Catch me on AURN this week. Be doing my thing with the McAllister Minute. In the meanwhile, you know I love you. I will catch up to you mañana on PCNC, on Global Grind, on the American Urban Radio Network, and here on LennyMcAllister.com. I love you. Talk to you soon. PCNGB. Take care, and God bless. Peace.